I'm Stephanie, and let's talk books. So, I don't know about the rest of you, but my 2020 has been just a little crazy, just a little unusual. So today I wanted to talk about something that I've been dealing with, and you might also be dealing with, and we're going to talk about book burnout and what to do and how to get out of it. One thing that has happened to me throughout this year is I'll have periods where I feel like I'm doing really good and I'm handling things and I've gotten into a new groove, and then everything just sort of disintegrates. And I have to find a whole new way of coping with all the crazy things that 2020 has been handing out. And one of the things that's happened to me is certain coping mechanisms that I use to handle stress are not available because of the social distancing and just not being able to just go out and do things and interact with people on a regular basis, which has led me to perhaps overindulge in some of the coping mechanisms and comfort activities that I still have access to. One of those things has been reading. And I've read a lot of books so far this year. So I started out the year with a Goodreads goal of 100 books. And then when the stay-at-home order in my state rolled out at the beginning of April, I basically went to work, exercised, read, and went to the grocery store once a week. So I think I read 18 books that month. Something really, really ridiculous. Quite a large number of books. And I continued to read sort of more books per month than I had in 2019. So April was a big month. I also had a readathon in August where I also read, again, about 18 books, 17, 18, I can't remember exactly how many. So I was reading a lot. I did increase my Goodreads goal by 10 books, and I still ended up being 20 books ahead of where I needed to be for quite an extended period of time. And sort of towards the middle of September, I started really feeling a lot of book burnout. I wasn't excited about reading. I didn't feel like it. I was gravitating more towards just vegging out on the couch, watching something on Netflix or YouTube instead of reading, which is very unusual for me. I'm almost always in the mood to read, and I used to read basically every day, either physically or via an audiobook. So I needed to figure out a way to deal with this because I love reading, and it was something that I really wanted to be able to continue to do and enjoy, and I didn't want to sort of force myself to continue reading in a way that was going to lead to a very long burnout where I may not want to come back to reading for several years. So there's a couple things that I did that I think definitely helped with this. And the first thing was I gave myself permission to take a break. I think that's super important. If you have something that you generally enjoy doing but are feeling sort of burnt out and not excited about anymore, I think one of the best things you can do is to take a break. And this does become a little bit more difficult if the thing you're burnt out on is the thing you also use to make money. But for me, reading is a hobby, and there is no consequence to me taking a break other than possibly not meeting my reading goals, which of course my Goodreads goal, I had plenty of buffer space there. So I did. I had a couple of things in September that I did want to finish. I did finish my reread of Oathbringer so that I was all the way through my Stormlight Archive reread in plenty of time for Rhythm of War, which is coming out next month. And I had a couple of other things that I was sort of part way through that I could finish. So, one of the reasons it was really important for me to go ahead and deal with the burnout as soon as I started feeling it coming on is because of Rhythm of War coming out. It was the 4th book in the Stormlight Archive series by Brandon Sanderson. Sanderson is my absolutely favorite author, if you can't tell by the shelves behind me, and I wanted to make sure I was in a place where I could get Rhythm of War on release day and still be excited and engaged and not have my burnout tarnish my experience with that book. So my reading slowed way down. Another thing that I did was I picked up a couple of books outside of my normal reading genre. This was kind of towards the end of September. I was definitely slowing down, and I thought maybe a change of pace would also help. I read a couple of actually contemporary romances, which is not a genre I usually read. I read one book which was like a adult contemporary romance that takes place at a Renaissance festival, and then I read another one which is a YA contemporary romance that takes place at a Comic-Con. So they were sort of fantasy sci-fi adjacent, but they're both kind of light and fluffy and short, and I definitely think that helped. So picking some books outside of your genre. Leading into October, I basically stopped reading though. I did read the original, which is a audio novella put out by Brandon Sanderson and Mary Robinette Kowal. That's like a sci-fi thriller type, and so that was it was short. I wouldn't say it was light because it was a thriller, but it was short and it was easy, and I could sort of go through it very slowly and kind of get through it quickly. But after that, I took a hard stop on reading books. So I've talked about giving yourself permission to take a break and trying some books outside of your normal reading genre. The other thing that I did is I picked up a new hobby. I used to do a lot of historical costuming. If you've been around my YouTube for a while, especially if you originally started on my blog, you'll know that I did a lot of historical costuming, especially during the Elizabethan era for the Ohio Renaissance Festival. And it was something that I sort of stopped doing when I moved to Florida because I just didn't have a great outlet where I could actually wear the things that I was making and do events. I decided that I was going to seriously look into joining the Society for Creative Anachronism, or SCA, which is a pre-1600 recreation group. They get into all sorts of nitty-gritty corners of history all over the globe for, mostly in the medieval period. I was just feeling like I could use a fun new nerd hobby, so I started diving into that. Right now, everything is, of course, virtual. There are no in-person events, but I have picked out some sewing projects to do for when events do come back, and I have been attending some of the online Zoom events to kind of see how things work down here in Florida and get to know some of the people in my local group, and it's been super awesome. So I have finally started reading again and feeling excited about books. So I have a couple of books to show you about what I have been reading lately. So after my nice long reading break in October, I decided to go and roll right back into the reading things outside of my normal genre. I've been picking up a lot of nonfiction books. So these two books, The Tudor Tailor and The Queen's Servant, are both 16th century English costuming books, and they have been super great. The Tudor Tailor is one that I have read before, and I purchased The Queen's Servant recently to read. This one focuses more on women's wear, whereas the Tudor Tailor focuses on both genders. And look, they're nice and short. They actually have lots of pictures, and it was just really refreshing to read about something else. And the other thing that I did was pick up a couple of general 16th century English nonfiction books. I've got How to Be a Tudor and The Time Traveler's Guide to Elizabethan England. It's been really great so far. For me, I have to be really excited about a nonfiction work to be in the mood to read nonfiction. So I am currently very excited about all things Elizabethan and Tudor. I went with that and I picked up 2 books to read. So I have finished How to Be a Tudor and I will be starting The Time Traveler's Guide to Elizabethan England very shortly. So those are some of the things that have really helped me with my reading burnout. I feel like I'm getting to a much better place in my burnout. I'm starting to just a little bit get excited about reading science fiction and fantasy again. But I'm trying to hold off just a little bit longer to get me a little bit closer to that Rhythm of War release date. I also have the Stormlight novella Dawn Shard to look forward to. That is going to be coming out sometime around the end of the month. It's a digital release, so they're a little bit flexible on the release date, but I feel like by the time that comes out, I will be just itching to get into another great fantasy novel, and the Sanderson never disappoints, so I am very excited about that. Let me know down in the comment section below if you have experienced any burnout in any of your hobbies or favorite activities this year and how you have dealt with them. I hope that you are still enjoying reading